Hey, hello listeners listening to this in 2017. Hello, all the listeners listening to Lilia's Sunday podcast at some point in the future, because I hope that one day the podcast goes big and people will be able to listen to it 10 years or 20 years from now. Well, generally, okay. So there we go. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. It's my pleasure to be here with you in 2017. And my name is Lilia and I'm recording this brand new episode of Lilia's Sunday podcast. For those who have listened to the 40 episodes that I've recorded so far, here is a top new episode for you to listen to and improve your English. So this is the podcast where I'm the teacher of English. My name is Lilia, so that's why I call the podcast Lilia's Sunday podcast. In this podcast, I'm just sharing my view on English learning and the English language teaching. And in this podcast, I'm just trying to share with you the tips which work all the time to help you make use of the years you've spent learning English and just eventually learn it and get able to speak it and use it in your everyday life. So for the time being, I think I'll be posting the new episodes on YouTube, but you can go to Podomatic. That's where I've posted all the episodes so far and download all about 40 episodes from there. So this time I'd like to talk about films. Learning English through films. Yeah, great. Just a couple of things to know. Well, everybody I meet, every student I get, every new student that comes to my online classroom loves just asking me this question. Is it possible to learn English if you just watch films, if you just don't have any classes, if you don't speak, if all I do is just go to the DVD shop and get a film from there, or just download something from the internet and start watching this fantastic film? Will I manage to learn English up to a very high standard? So what I usually say is that, yeah, films are a great way to work in your informal English. Vocabulary used in everyday life. I can't really get count of the number of things, the number of benefits that you can get from watching a decent movie. So there are so many things. You can learn so many great words, great phrases, amazing idioms, yeah, just fantastic colloquial everyday language. That's all great. Yeah. And also, plus you can work on hearing how native speakers link the words and actually hear the real speed of English as it's spoken in everyday life. So just don't listen to your teacher slowing down every time when you don't understand something, but you tend to practice that everyday English, right? And you hear it, and you can imagine that you go to an English speaking country and learn the language, right? Just coming from the mouth of native speaker. So that's great. Okay, there we go. Just you can work in your informal English and you can listen to native speakers saying the words without just adapting the language to your needs as a language learner. But there is one major mistake that learners make, in my opinion. Learners start watching authentic films in English from the very beginning. All right. So imagine you're a beginner or a starter or an elementary or a pre-intermediate learner. So you think, why not watch like this great American film? Yeah, just why not watch it from the very beginning? And okay, what happens is that learners don't really understand the film and they quit and they lose motivation. They don't want to learn English because they don't understand. So they run into this failure from the very beginning. So they don't want to go on. They don't want to carry on. They just want to stop there because they think, all right, so I've played an authentic film in English. I don't understand it. I have no clue what people are saying. So I can't carry on. So that means I'm useless. I'm a total failure. I will never learn English. I had a student who started watching Sherlock and couldn't get her head around anything they said, particularly Sherlock, and she got gutted. She got so disappointed and she stopped believing in herself because she thought, oh, right, English is not for me. I couldn't understand an English movie, so that's why English is not for me. Okay, I've done a couple of pages from my grammar book. I've done the first unit from my textbook, but when I played something real, when I played a TV program, I couldn't really understand anything. All right. So that's where the disappointment comes from. So what can we do? What can you do as beginning learners, right? In your modest beginnings, what can you do? For starters and elementaries, and you can also recommend that to your starter and elementary learners. Just try and use adaptations for learners. Don't set the bar too high. All right. So don't just set the standards too high. There are lots of films that accompany textbooks for learners, such as Speak Out or English File. You can just find them on YouTube. Go to YouTube. Don't go mad. If you're a teacher, recommend that to your learners. Try to choose a course book which is accompanied by some video, right? Some video DVD materials that you can use to your own benefit to help you with your English, right? Where you can see real people, because watching people say things is actually more helpful than just listening to people saying things on radio, because you can see how their mouth works, you can see how their tongue works, right? You can see how the lips work when they're just saying something, right? You can just look at that, and sometimes that might help you recognize a word you've learned, right? So when you just split what they say to words and just to phrases, you can understand that easier. So try and use the adaptations rather than something that people say which is not intended for learners of English. So starting from the pre-intermediate level, yes, you can try and watch something, let's say, mainstream. All right? So especially if you've seen the film before in your first language and you have an idea what's going on, that's where you should start. You can also watch some TV adverts, something with not so many words, right? Some videos where people just don't speak a lot when they maybe do something, right? When there are more actions than words, you know what I mean? So just generally you can watch a bit of that. Still, pre-intermediate is still not really ready for big films, right? For unadapted films. I just feel that, and I'm speaking from my experience here. You might actually disagree. If you're a pre-intermediate learner and you can understand lots of films which have not been adapted for learners of English, just post a comment down below and tell me which films you're watching so that other learners can just follow your experience and just start watching the easier films too. All right. So there we go. The thing about English is that it's represented in so many accents, and some accents are rather difficult to understand. So British TV shows are probably not the best way to start. I think that we all know that British English is famous for its number of accents and for the number of regional varieties of the type of language that people speak in the UK. So there is lots of slang and lots of accents, and some accents are quite difficult to understand. So I wouldn't recommend choosing British TV shows or British films for a novice learner. So you may start watching British films when you just go up in terms of your level, but just don't just dive into watching a British show if your level is just beyond elementary, just beyond pre-intermediate. Well, some people find it challenging when they don't understand something, and that makes them go online and look the new words up in a dictionary. But just if that's okay, if you don't understand one word out of 50. All right. But listen, if you can't understand 25 words out of 50 or 40 words out of 50, I wouldn't say that's the best way to learn English, right? Because all you get is failure and that you're a failure, right? Rather than a feeling of the right level of challenge or something. So, having said that, I think that documentaries are great, particularly BBC documentaries, because the language that's spoken by the presenters in BBC documentaries is just amazing. It's perfectly understandable. It's great for any type of learner, especially if you're working on your pronunciation and you just want to get a clear accent. Yeah, a clear British accent. Just try and watch some of those great BBC documentaries. They produce so many documentaries every year, so you can just Google the best BBC documentaries and I'm sure you'll be able to come across some of their best documentaries of all times. So if I'm honest with you guys, sometimes I don't understand some lines actors say in films. So, consequently, I have to go back once in a while and just check what an actor said because I didn't really understand what they were saying. So that's okay. Scrolling back is okay. Just make sure that you don't use subtitles, because I think subtitles tend to distract you and they just draw too much of your attention that you could be paying on the screen and what the actors are doing, right, and trying to figure out what they're saying. And when you're watching something with subtitles, you're working on your reading rather than your listening. So just you're not working on your listening skills, which is your main goal when you're watching a film. But subtitles are fantastic when you want to learn new vocabulary and phrases. Then switch them on without thinking. You just want to pick up some of this fantastic informal colloquial English that's spoken in the street. Just make sure you switch on the subtitles and you have your notebook on you and you have your pen in your right hand or your left hand or whichever hand you use more. And you can start, like picking up the new phrases and make sure that the words are spelled in the right way in the subtitles, because sometimes they just make such a mess of some of the simplest words in the English language. So there you go. That's how you can learn new vocabulary. Right. So generally, the higher your level is, the more films are open to you, right? So, and the more films you can watch. And I should say that films is probably the highest level of listening that you can get sometimes, because when you listen to one person, be it a comedian or a TV presenter or a TV host or your English speaking friend or your teacher of English, we tend to, get used to their manner of speaking, to their way of speaking. And just with time, right, over time, we get used to their manner, to their accent, and we can understand that person easily. But when you're watching a film, you're actually listening to a variety of voices, to a variety of people. Each of them has their own manner and their own accent. So that's where you get this variety, and that's what you get in your real life. So that's when you get as close to the real life conversations as you possibly can. So there you go. Films are great, but just use them wisely. If you want to know more, you can come to my Skype lessons. I teach English on Skype. So I'm happy to see you in my virtual online classroom. Just message me on Facebook or VK or write me an email to get enrolled for Skype lessons with me, and I'll help you based on your level and your strengths and weaknesses. Hopefully I'll make more podcasts in year 2017. That's a great year. I hope it's a great year, and I can foresee it will be a great year because I've started making my own New Year resolutions, and I've asked a couple of my friends what their resolutions are going to be this year, and all of them are extremely positive. They're just fairly optimistic about what's going to happen. So I wish you all the best. I wish that all your dreams come true, that you managed to learn English, that you subscribe to my YouTube channel where you can listen to this, that you like the videos, that you give my podcasts big thumbs ups, and that you learn English and that you're fantastic. Yes, right. So I wish you could speak English great, and I know that you will. All right? You will be able to speak English in a fantastic way one day if you keep listening to Lilia Sunday podcast. Thank you very, very much. I wish you all the best. Thanks for listening to Lilia Sunday podcast for the first time in 2017. Love. That was Lilia from Lilia Sunday podcast.